Welcome to another episode of DEVChats. I'm your host, Dark Angel, for today, and we're here to talk with Jonatan Crafoord about Virtuoso, a new music-making game that's getting music lovers of all levels into the mix. It was created by Really Interactive and published by Fast Travel Games. Thank you for joining us, Jonatan. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Great. So Virtuoso recently released on March 10th for Quest, Rift, and Steam platforms. So Jonatan, let's get to know a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about Really Interactive.
Right, yeah. So I've been working on Virtuoso since back in 2017. I'm originally a musician myself, and I've worked in the video games industry for a while as a sound designer, and then later as a programmer. So I started working on Virtuoso in my spare time, just wanting to do like something in VR that could control my music programs, basically. Then back in 2020, I showed it to my teammates at Really Interactive, and we decided that this is really something that should be not just for musicians, but for everyone, really. So we decided to bring it into the company and start working on it more or less full time. And 2 years later, it's released. So that's exciting.
That's awesome. All right, so tell us a little bit more about the game.
Yeah,
you have to give like a quick rundown of Virtuoso.
Yeah, so Virtuoso is what we call a VR musical sandbox. So you can go in there and create music. It's very focused around playing music live, sort of. There's not so much like fiddling with little controls or like typing in the notes that you want to do, but you get your hands into the instruments and really start playing the music yourself. And one of the really cool things about it is that we're trying to make it for everyone, really, regardless of musical experience. So even if you've never touched an instrument before, we really try to make it easy for you to get into Virtuoso.
That's great.
While still, of course, trying to keep it relevant to like more experienced musicians as well.
How hard was it to try to come up with that idea of making it accessible and easy enough for people that have never played any musical instruments before?
I think part of it was by necessity, because like VR is still quite a small market in a sense. Like there's it's growing and growing, right? But like if you want to make something that gets a bit of spread, it really has to be for everyone at this point still. Like just doing something for a super small niche market is it's not really gonna work out. But also, like for me, it was just wanting to get people who've never experienced music creation before to get into it and try to do it. And I'm very inspired by Tilt Brush for that. Like we used to play a lot of Tilt Brush, and I'm like no artist myself, but this has been like one of the first mediums that I've experienced where I can actually start like expressing myself visually, right? So yes. In a way, I guess we wanted to do the same thing, but for music. So for people who've never touched an instrument, they can just go in and start making something and have it be a fun journey.
That's great. So did that help to inform you as to which sort of instruments that you wanted to pick?
Yeah, so I think like a lot of what I've seen before from music applications in VR, they typically tend to try to like emulate real world instruments, like they bring a piano into VR or they bring a guitar into VR. And for me, that's never really worked out really well. Like it becomes a piano but worse, right? Because you can't really use your fingers in the same way. So from the start, we really tried to design the instruments for VR. So just like think about what are the advantages of VR. Like you can move your hands in and out and up and down. You could have like floating instruments. They don't have to be like connected to the ground. You don't have to hold them. You can tilt your hands in different ways. So we were really just trying to use all of those movements and translate them into like musical expressions, right? So so that's really the foundation of it.
That's great. Yes, I played around with it for some time, and that connection between, you know, what you're hearing and what you feel, but also having what you see and being able to tilt your hand, like you said, and move forward and backwards. It's great to have those all brought together in one place.
Yeah, there's like a lot of room for interactivity in virtual reality as well. Like we can have the environment respond to the music. So really when you go into Virtuoso, you kind of see like the speakers are moving to the beat of the music, and like everything around you is kind of flashing and blinking in time with the beat. So those things are of course stuff that you can't really, that's hard to do in like a real world studio. So we tried to do as much of that as possible as well.
So how did you end up choosing specifically as to which instruments? I know you have like a harp and you have the organ. How did you come about choosing which instruments to actually get into the game?
I think much of it was just like what inspired us. The first instrument that I built was actually the one called the organ. And that was really just trying to utilize all of these movements, like being able to put your hands inwards and up and down, and just it's in a way it's not the simplest of the instruments, but it's also in some ways the most exciting one. And from there we kind of just branched out based on what we felt was needed inside the app. So there's an instrument that plays chords, so the cluster. The harp, really, it actually came about after I'd been to an opera show. So I'd been like, I've been to the opera and just listened to opera music. And then when I got home, I was like, I felt inspired to try to create a harp. So some of it was just by chance. Other things were like more out of necessity for what we needed in the app for people to be able to create music effectively. Yeah.
I certainly am thankful for the M-pads and the tempo sync. That is a great tool, especially for non-musicians. You know, I do have some musical background, but as far as timing with drums, it's not a thing in my world. So having that in there is wonderful. How did you come up with the idea of having it sync with the haptics of the controller?
So the tempo sync is really, I guess, what you would in a regular music program you would call it quantization. So it just like sort of moves the notes to the beat. It really helps you keep a beat going at a steady tempo, and especially if you put it up to like a fairly like fast sync, you can just like slam the drums quickly, and it sounds really like you're doing like this really cool drum fill. So I think that was when we got that in place. It really started feeling like this is something that people can use regardless of musical experience level. So it was one of those tools that was really like got us far on that way, I think.
That's awesome. So do you have any plans to add any more instruments in the future, or where do you go from here? What else can you bring into the program?
Yeah, for sure. Like we have a lot of ideas for new features and stuff that we really want to build. Really too many things. Like we're a small team, so we're actually only like 4 developers working on the game.
Oh wow!
And then And then so we just sat down the other day and listed, like, I think we got up to like 15 or so really like big features that we wanted to explore next, where we could maybe like choose one or two for the next big update. So there's a lot of things that we want to do, and hopefully you'll get to see many of them over like the coming year in the forms of new updates. But definitely like new instruments and new sounds are definitely on that list, of course.
Awesome. And you also have the community aspect where folks can share their songs and collaborate with other people.
That was
awesome.
That was something we actually added it quite late, but it was like one of the most requested things in Virtuoso has really been, you know, some kind of multiplayer aspect of it, which is obviously really hard to do for music making because of latency. Like just being able to play together with other people and in time with other people is really challenging, and especially if you're trying to do it like across the Atlantic, you know. So one way that we figured out that we could get some kind of collaborative element in right from the beginning was by having you be able to like share your songs and your projects with other people, and then them just being able to like keep working on them, remix them, collaborate on them, add stuff to them. So that's what we're doing with our community library, and it's really exploded. I think in the first couple of days since we released, there was like several hundred songs that was that were added to it already. So it's been a success, but people are still asking for more multiplayer features, of course. So definitely something that's on our radar and that we want to explore. We're just still kind of trying to figure out what form it will take and what timeline we're gonna have for it.
Okay. I was just curious, do you plan on bringing the program over to PSVR?
I mean, personally, I would love to bring it to like as many platforms as possible where it makes sense. Obviously, we still don't really know when PSVR 2 is gonna hit. So, and I think, like I'm not gonna say anything about PSVR, like the existing iteration of it, because I don't really know the state of that. Like it's also an ongoing discussion with our publisher Fast Travel, what platforms we're gonna be out on. But like definitely, we're definitely looking at PSVR 2, and we're super interested in getting it on there eventually.
That would be really awesome. Would love to see it. My first experience in the game, I was in there for 3 hours. I didn't expect that. I mean, I knew I would probably be in there for a while, but I didn't think I would go for a 3-hour run, because I love to just sort of noodle and play with everything and try to figure out, oh, what does this do? What does that do? And, you know, pick up real quick in my head, like, oh, I like this sound effect. Okay, I'll have to come back to that one. And and try to add them all together and you know, create that fun sound. So it was really, it's been such a blast, because I've yet to find a program like this. I've been sort of waiting, and I think a lot of people have been waiting for a game like this in VR.
Yeah, it's funny because like when I first started working on it, one of the things that I decided quite early on was to not look at other VR music creation apps, but just like start from scratch with something that I felt that I wanted to do, just to keep like the excitement level up and not get to like feel too much pressure on like what other people were already doing. So it does, I think it's contributed to Virtuoso having kind of a unique vibe to it. It's quite different from traditional music programs, I guess, in a way. And I hope that helps make it attractive. And I think it also kind of helps level the playing field a bit for new players and more experienced players, because everything is kind of new regardless of your experience with creating music, right? So you could have someone who is like an experienced pianist who would go in there and be like, oh wow, everything is new, I don't know what to do in here. And it's the same experience that someone who has never played music before would have. So we just try to approach new players from that perspective and like assume that they know nothing about how to do things in Virtuoso, and just like help them as much as possible to get started.
Yes.
So I think there's definitely more things we can do there. I know that's been quite requested to do more tutorials, for example. We do have like an interactive tutorial in Virtuoso that really gets you started with just creating some music. But for sure, that's an area that we can also explore more, I think, just making more tutorials for people.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of what started to blow my mind the further in that I went. You know, you have someone that walks you along in the beginning. You can always open up your menu and come back to those tutorials. And then once I started to sort of get in there and play further and further, I'm like, oh, hold on, there's a scale thing here, and oh, I can change the actual notes, and it doesn't have to be in this particular key, or I can tell it which note to start on, and oh, I can quantize, I arpeggiate. Yeah, it was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Wonderful.
Like, in a way, I guess it might feel like we've sort of hidden away some of those features, and in a way we actually have. Like it's partly intentional, actually, because we don't want to overwhelm new players with a lot of like musical lingo or music information that they're not familiar with. So when you first just get into Virtuoso, there's not a whole lot of information that's being thrown at you. You're just like expected to put your hands inside of an instrument and start playing, and everything kind of sounds in tune. It sounds in sync with the beat. And then later on, like when you start exploring a bit, then you can see that like, oh, can I actually change these things? Can I change the tempo? Yeah, I can. Okay. Can I change the scale or the key? Yes, that's also possible. But it's not like front and center towards new players. That makes sense.
I think that's the best feature of it. It's very intuitive. You know, to have anyone just walk up to a drum set or to walk up to a piano or whatnot, that's got to be incredibly overwhelming. So
yeah.
To have it in this virtual space and, you know, not just have like straight keys laid out for you or whatever, just sort of a simplified way for folks to be encouraged and invited to come and just play and have fun.
Yeah. Like in a way, that's one of the advantages of like VR in general as well, because it has these social aspects, but it can also be super private, right? So you can kind of explore yourself in this virtual space where nobody else will see what you're doing or hear what you're doing, and you can just really go wild with creating music, even though you've never done it before. And then like when you're ready to share it with someone else, then you can just easily go online and start sharing it with the world. But up until that point, you're like free to explore it on your own without anyone judging you, right?
Now, I think I've read something about a companion app. Could you talk a little more about that?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're trying to do just to keep Virtuoso more relevant to more experienced musicians and more experienced music producers, I guess, is to allow Virtuoso to connect to external music programs. So because there's a lot of features that you would maybe say are missing in Virtuoso if you want to do like serious music productions, quote unquote, such as like there's not yet any sequencer inside of Virtuoso. You can't put in your own custom sounds. So the way that we've kind of gotten around that is that you can download this companion app that we developed, and you put it on your PC where you have your music program, and then Virtuoso will connect to it, and everything that you play on the Virtuoso instruments will get sent to your music program. So you can play on whatever samples you have inside of your music program, whatever synthesizers or like plugins you have in there you can use, and you can also kind of like sequence it and do things with it in there.
Oh, okay. So like if you had like Ableton or FL Studio or GarageBand or anything, you could plug the app into...
Exactly,
oh,
exactly,
that's
great. and like play on whatever synthesizers or samples that you have inside of Ableton, for example. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so if we wanted to follow you or get any more information, I think you do have a Discord community as well, right? Where can we find you?
The Discord community that we have, that's actually kind of exploded overnight when we released the app. So you can find that on discord.gg/virtuoso. So feel free to join if you're new to Virtuoso, or even if you've been playing for a while, like on the App Lab version before we released it. Like the people in there are just super helpful and nice, and just giving each other feedback, or like posting new creations, or just helping out if there are technical issues, for example. And us devs are also hanging out there all the time, so you can talk to the devs there as well.
Oh, great, great. I do think that I played a version of it on App Lab. I can't remember, like it was a while back.
Yeah,
but
yeah, it's been out, like it was actually released on App Lab pretty much a year ago. So it's been out on App Lab for about a year before we released it on the official Quest store now. So we have had some time to like and we have had some time to like get some feedback on it and grow the community quite a lot as well. But it's a huge difference now that we've released it on the Quest store. Like so much more activity very, very suddenly. So yeah.
Yes, I definitely see myself spending a lot of time playing this game.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you should join the Discord then and post some of the stuff that you're making as well. That's really one of the things that's been like surprising me the most about since the release really has been how incredibly nice and helpful everyone has been in the community. Like you'd expect any kind of gamer community to have some level of like toxicity or stuff like that, but really everyone has just been super friendly and like really supportive, especially of new players coming in and like posting the things that they're doing. And you know, it could be players that are completely new to music, so kind of objectively from a musical standpoint it's kind of basic, right? But people are just so supportive of where people are in their own sort of development and experience, and that's just really encouraging to see.
Yeah. Well, you know, music, as we know, is such a universal language, and with all the things that are happening in real life and the outside world, it's nice to have a place that we can all come to and share and collaborate and just have fun and enjoy, especially with music.
Yeah, for sure. Like that's one of the things that really attracted me to keep working on this project as well. It's just that it's just like purely a creative project. There's no violence in it. There's not a lot of like competitiveness in it either. Just expressing yourself through music, basically.
All right, Jonathan. Well, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us here today. It was very nice to meet you. Thank everyone for watching us, and we'll see you again on another episode of DEVChats. Later, gamers.
Bye.